Part 24. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 234. Among the black trees, the leaves rustled in the breeze. Some white dandelion seeds slowly floated in the air, and a few small yellow bees buzzed onto the small red flowers at the foot of the tree. On the left side of the cemetery, at a damaged fence, a middle-aged man in black dress slowly walked in. He was dressed exquisitely and wore white gloves, like a nobleman who had just dismounted. In silence, the man looked at the tombstone with calm and sad eyes, seeming to recall many past events. Slight footsteps sounded from behind the man in black at the same time. Who? The man turned his head sharply and looked warily at the woods behind him. Deep in the dark forest, a dark red figure appeared again. It was a young man in a red trench coat. He strode through the woods and grass, walked 10 meters behind the man in black, stopped, and looked at the person in front of him with a downcast look. "Aining, do you have the nerve to come?" the man in red said coldly. 12 years. Is this the first time in 12 years that you have come to see her tomb? Aren't you the same? The man in black's face also turned cold. "Creed, this is my wife's cemetery, you are not welcome," he emphasized my words. "You were the one who killed Hill. What qualifications do you have to say such a thing? Even her tombstone is broken like this." The man in red was not to be outdone. The two faced each other, one black and one red, looking particularly opposite and conspicuous. Enning, the man in black, looked around as if he was looking for something, and he vaguely discovered something. "Are you following me? Otherwise, how could we find Hill's grave?" Red-clothed Creed sneered. "Forget it, Enning, it was a mistake when I handed Hill over to you. I thought she could live a peaceful and happy life with you. Life is no more chaotic than my life in the army. I didn't expect that I would settle the accounts with you today. I admit that I'm sorry for Hill, but it's not your turn to teach me a lesson." Enning stared coldly at this former love rival. "Creed Igeson, don't think I'm afraid of you. There are some things I just don't want to argue with you." "Why are you still talking nonsense now?" Creed raised his right hand, revealing a ruby ring on his middle finger. "Come on, let me see how you have improved over the years." Suddenly, the ring burst into pure red light, and a slender red light drilled out from the surface of the small gemstone. The red light fell on the ground and turned into a giant red-haired wolf half as tall as a man. "Woo!" The giant wolf looked up to the sky and roared. Its eyes glowed with a faint red light, and its body was no different from a real animal. Except for the strange eyes, the rest of it was a real giant wolf. The down on its body was blown by the wind, causing layers of wrinkles. The giant red wolf is nearly 3 meters long and more than 1 meter tall. Its 4 claws are sharp, and there are still some tiny traces of blood on the claws. Garen hid in the grass and watched the scene with surprise. Red light emits from the ring, and then the red light turns into a giant red wolf. Every detail of the change was clearly seen by him. What surprised him even more was that Creed himself, who released the giant wolf, seemed to be surrounded by a thin layer of red light. The red light was oval in shape, completely covering him from head to toe without any gaps. "It's really wonderful." Garen originally thought that the secret method of secret martial arts was already very strange, and the elf sword he encountered later was equally wonderful. But after all, it is also the top level of force. Unlike this one, these two people represent the general standards of this world. A giant red wolf, Aining looked solemn and took out a small stick from his waist, all silver white. He gently swiped with his staff, and a beam of white light flew out from the top of the staff, falling to the ground and turning into a white bear. Ouch! The white bear was as tall as a man. He stood upright and roared fiercely at the giant red wolf. "There is nothing special about this white bear. It looks no different from a normal polar bear, and there is no special halo. Creed, I lost to you back then, but it's different now. I won't lose to you in front of Hill." "Absolutely." Enning took off the white gloves on his hands, revealing his hands full of scars. "Words are of no use," Creed sneered and waved his right hand wearing a ruby ring. "Superior!" The giant red wolf roared, and swooped past the right side of the white bear. Its claws glowed red, and it sneered at the white bear, causing a bloody mouth. The fur around the wound was clearly burnt, and there was a burning smell. The giant wolf was very fast, and only after passing by the white bear did the other party react. With a splat, it landed behind the white bear. On the grass where the giant wolf's forepaws landed, a small amount of green smoke actually appeared. "Ouch!" The white bear roared angrily, turned around and slapped the giant wolf, but he nimbly dodged it. Click! The tree trunk next to it was hit and broke immediately, and a large amount of yellow and white sawdust was blown out. The white bear chased the giant wolf and pounced on it, clawing at it with its paws, and biting wildly at the giant wolf. The two giant beasts rolled into a ball, and the ground shook. Garin was hiding on the side, carefully observing the bite and lethality of the giant beast. The giant wolf's claws and teeth seem to have a high-temperature burning effect and are very lethal. There were scorch marks on the tree trunks and grass that it encountered. The white bear is strong, and its fur has very thick defense. It has been caught several times by the giant wolf without any major wounds. It was only in the bites that some lacerations appeared. Watching the two beasts bite and fight, the owners on both sides did not make any move, but just stood motionless. Garin looked over carefully and was slightly startled. The two of them were surrounded by red light and white light eggs respectively. Their feet were slightly off the ground, and they were actually floating on the ground out of thin air. Is this the totem of the Silver Lantern Master? Garin noticed that no blood spilled from the wounds on the two beasts. The bitten flesh and blood directly turned into white and red light and dissipated directly. The two beasts were entangled and fighting, affecting some of the surrounding trees and rocks, making a mess. But they all made a tacit understanding not to touch the area around the tombstone. This also prevents Garin at the other end of the cemetery from worrying about safety issues. If these two beasts are totems, then their destructive power is probably around the D level in the martial arts world. Garin visually inspected the approximate extent of damage and estimated in his mind. These two people are the most ordinary Silver Lantern Masters, with average strength. In other words, any Silver Lantern Master's destructive power at its weakest is equivalent to that of a D-class fighter. Recalling the series of stronger Silver Lantern Masters that appeared later in the scene, Garin felt a chill in his heart. There will be more and stronger Silver Lantern Masters in the future. Sure enough, this world is much stronger than the world of secret martial arts. Bang! At this time, the white bear just happened to break a half-meter diameter large tree, and the broken tree trunk hit Creed with a bang. But it was immediately blocked by the red light on Creed's body and bounced away. Sure enough, no wonder they didn't do it themselves. It turns out that they themselves are protected by this light. Garin made a mental note. He found that the Silver Lantern Master in the picture was like this, never commanding the totem to attack the enemy's owner. Now it seems that there is obviously a certain reason. The white bear was eventually seriously injured by the giant wolf's scorching attack. But there was no intention of retreating at all, and they still roared and fought wildly, showing the momentum that they would die together even if they died. Enning, who was standing not far away, had red eyes, clenched his teeth, and kept tapping the air in front of him with his cane, as if there was something there. "You're crazy." Creed's expression changed slightly. "If you continue like this, your totem will be completely destroyed." Aining didn't seem to hear his words at all, and still waved his cane crazily. Ouch! The giant red wolf was finally slapped hard on the abdomen and rolled out, sprinkling a large number of red light spots along the way and dissipating in the air. "Don't force me." Creed also showed a hint of ferocity on his face. "Don't think you are the only one who dares to burn the totem." "Then give it a try." Aining gritted his teeth and responded. There was a flash of hesitation in Creed's eyes. At this moment, the white bear pounced, grabbed the giant wolf on the ground, and lifted it high. Ouch! The white bear seemed to have a sudden increase in speed and strength. No matter how hard the giant wolf struggled, it was of no avail. The two bear claws tore apart fiercely on both sides. "Sivak!" Creed shouted suddenly. He raised his right hand high, and the ring between his fingers instantly burst into dazzling red light. The lifted giant wolf's body shook violently, and a red light flashed all over its body. It expanded rapidly, getting bigger and redder. Boom! The giant wolf exploded instantly, like a balloon inflated to its limit, and a huge amount of golden red flames burst out from its huge body. The ground was shaking, and huge sound waves instantly spread in a circular shape in all directions. Trees, soil, mixed with flames flew everywhere, swallowing up the two silver lantern masters directly, and a little bit of fiery red liquid splashed onto the surrounding tree trunks 20 or 30 meters away, immediately igniting a large number of trees. Garen felt something was wrong the moment Creed shouted and quickly backed away. The moment he heard the explosion, he rolled back and ran several meters away. It's equivalent to ordinary high-explosive bombs. After he stood up from a distance, he was still thinking about evaluating the power of this move. The flames stopped not far in front of him. Within a full 20 meters, the grass, rocks, and flowers inside were all blown to black. All the trees within the range were blown off, and the ground was full of burning tree trunks. It's so powerful. Garen looked carefully at the center of the flame, trying to find traces of the two silver lantern masters. Boom! In an instant, there was another louder sound. A dazzling fire burst out from the center again and rushed towards his position instantly. "I'll wipe it." Garen turned around and jumped. The whole person was violently rushed several meters away by the impact, and then he reluctantly landed next to a big tree and stood still. If he hadn't still had a good foundation in martial arts, he would have been thrown to pieces. He looked back and saw that the entire dark forest, centered on the two silver lantern masters, with a radius of 30 meters, had turned into a sea of fire, with tree trunks, flowers, grass, and rocks all burning. The blazing red light shone on him, dyeing all his white clothes red, and his hair and clothes were a little burnt. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 235. What kind of flame is this? Garen was dumbfounded as he watched a piece of rock being quickly burned into magma, slowly flowing along the ground. Most places on the ground were in a dark red liquid state. It was like a swamp of red liquid, just releasing a lot of high heat. This familiar high heat reminded Garen of the magma he had seen at Black Smoke Pot Volcano. This fire is definitely close to 1,000 degrees, Garen did not dare to get closer. He looked at the ground within the flame range from a distance, feeling faintly cold in his heart. If the average silver lantern master is of this level, he didn't dare to think about it. Such lethality and power were really terrifying. How can this be a D level? This kind of trick of killing each other is even available in the B level. Galen immediately thought of the father of this body, Vined Man, and wondered if he also had such instant explosive power. At first, I saw the two of them fighting tepidly, not very powerful, but I didn't expect that it was the result of all the strength being restrained. This time it completely exploded, and even the rocks within a 30-meter radius were melted. This is equivalent to a small volcanic eruption. Reminiscent of the Baker Stone eyes that Vined Man will face in the future, as well as the elite members of the Black Sky Society, these are all the best among the Silver Lantern Masters, and they are much better than the two just now. At least a few grades higher. If all ordinary Silver Lantern Masters are of this level, then the group of Silver Lantern Masters would be really terrifying. Garen felt that the blood in his body was constantly heating up, and the skin on his face and hands were sore and itchy. Although the Silver Lantern Master's strength has been roughly explored, he is not happy at all when he thinks about the two enemies he will face in the future. He asked himself, even if the statue was at its peak, it might not be able to stop the terrifying explosion and high temperature just now, and this was just a battle between two ordinary Silver Lantern Masters. Now Vined Man has killed Baker's first love, Stone Eyes, and is also very unhappy with the Black Sky Club. If he hadn't been a positive supporter of the royal power, he would have died a long time ago. But the feud took over long ago. The flames ignited the surrounding woods, burning the forest above them red. The red light of the flames was everywhere around him, and there was no other color. The sound of crackling explosions was endless, and the wind blew the sparks flying to the right, farther and farther away. Thick black smoke rose high and was extremely conspicuous over the entire forest. The smell of burning trees made Garen unable to help but retreat a lot again. He looked at the center of the fire again, but there was still no movement. The life and death of the two Silver Lantern Masters were unknown. If he had been asked to believe that someone could survive such a flame before, he might not have believed it, but now he was indeed a little unsure. After seeing the power and weirdness of the Silver Lantern Master, he would not be surprised no matter how things challenge common sense. Hearing the sound of an approaching patrol in the distance, Garen found a direction and quickly left the burning land in a concealed manner. On the way back to the manor, he felt very heavy. The Silver Lantern Master's strength far exceeded his imagination. The fight between the two Silver Lantern Masters at the beginning was similar to what was shown on the screen. They didn't look very powerful, but also very ordinary. But if it hadn't been for that last explosion, he wouldn't have been able to feel the terrifying energy contained in the totem beast. A full 30-meter radius turned into a sea of fire, and the rocks affected by the explosion flames even melted into magma. This kind of power only appeared on ordinary Silver Lantern Masters. Call. Garen let out a long breath. When he thought about having to face Baker's Stone Eyes and Black Sky Society in the future, he felt depressed. It seems that we need to learn more about Silver Lantern Master as soon as possible. He carefully recalled the picture information he saw. There are still more than 2 years until Baker's Stone Eyes comes. I hope I can make it in time. Regardless of whether he is willing or not, after traveling through time and being reincarnated into Ahashia, he will inevitably face this destined crisis. Luo Jing is not sure if he will travel through time again if he dies again. And this time, the power of the Silver Lantern Master is extraordinary, much stronger than that of the Mai Wu. What if someone could interfere with the soul? Seeing the terrifying power of the Silver Lantern Master, Luo Jing also began to feel a little uncertain. With his current strength, even if the god statue skill is fully restored, it is impossible to withstand the temperature approaching 1,000 degrees, not to mention that there are several stronger enemies behind him. Boom! There was another explosion in the woods behind him, and he didn't know what happened again. Garen turned around and looked behind him, seeing that the flames were gradually getting smaller and the black smoke was much less. In the woods nearby, a group of guards in white clothes trotted over. "Master! Are you okay? Master!" The guard captain was a man with a mustache. His face turned pale and he rushed to Garen and asked anxiously. "We were late. How could you wander alone in such a dangerous place? It would be terrible if you were injured by the explosion." The guard captain pointed at the two guards behind him and said, "Fortunately, they came over in time to notify us, otherwise it will be really troublesome." "I'm fine." Jia Long used the turtle breath kung fu to remove the blood from his face, making his face pale and his eyes dull. "Let's go back first. I was just shocked." "It's okay, it's okay. It's okay." The captain breathed a sigh of relief. "Come on, we'll take you back to the manor right away." Under the escort of a group of guards, Galen returned to the manor, took a comfortable hot bath in a wooden barrel, and changed into new white clothes. Only then did he see the hurriedly arrived housekeeper Du Jian. This housekeeper was the plump woman she saw beside her father Vined Man during the day. After seeing Garen, she greeted him with greetings and seemed extremely concerned about him. After learning that there were no injuries, He felt relieved and asked someone to send some soothing spices, and then went out to command the guards to put out the fire. After closing the door, Garin sat alone on the big bed, turned off the kerosene lamp, and pretended to be asleep. He began to think about his next plan. There are still 2 years. Judging from the information on the screen, the only one who can fight against the Silver Lantern Master is the Silver Lantern Master. When I was in the secret martial arts world, it only took me more than 3 years to reach the peak level. The mainstream of this world is Silver Lantern Master. I don't believe that in 2 years, with how powerful my powers are, I won't be able to protect myself. So how do you become a Silver Lanternist? Garin began to think about this problem. His father, Vindman, is a Silver Lantern Master. If you want to enter this field, the closest way is to get it from Vindman. But if Vindman was willing to teach Ahashia, he should have taught him long ago, and he would not be allowed to be exposed to this aspect at such an early age. Garin glanced at the attribute bar below his field of vision, and the attributes had changed slightly. Strength 0.8, Agility 0.8, Constitution 0.8, Intelligence 0.4, Potential 1872% has unknown qualifications. Physical fitness has improved by 0.1, which is obviously the result of the past few days. His eyes fell on this unknown qualification again. What is this unknown qualification? Could it be the qualification of a Silver Lantern Master? After thinking about it for a while on the bed, he vaguely heard Vindman's voice coming from outside. He seemed to be asking Ducci about the fire, and specifically asked if he was injured. Knowing that his son was not injured, Vindman's tone was obviously much more relaxed. He originally planned to come over to see his son, but when he found out that he had already gone to bed, Vindman didn't insist. Then the sound was accompanied by footsteps, and the group of people gradually moved away. Galen sat on the bed and thought about how high the success rate would be if he directly confessed to Vindman that he wanted to become a Silver Lantern Master. At the same time, he also recalled relevant information from the screen information he saw. From the picture memory, Galen discovered a key point. Silver lighting engineer is obviously a very expensive profession. Very expensive. Very expensive. Although we only know the approximate origin of melting silver to create precise totems, we can tell that this is a very luxurious profession just from using silver to make totems. Garin briefly searched his memory and found out that silver in this world is far more expensive than other metals such as gold. It's completely opposite to the price on Earth. Silver became the most expensive metal, followed by gold. The silver here is equivalent to the status of gold on Earth. Therefore, most of the nobles here like to use silver to express nobility. Many of Ahashia's clothes are mostly silver. Garin probably analyzed the family fortune and ruled out the possibility of being unable to provide 2 Silver Lantern Masters. Because the original Ahashia was a very prodigal guy, but no matter how much money he lost, the Viscount didn't care, and he was obviously not a poor money owner. If it's not financial resources, it might be other factors. Garin carefully recalled the original memory of Ahashia. Vaguely, he recalled a scene. It was when Ahashia was very young, and he seemed to stumble upon Vindman doing something mysterious and interesting. At that time, Vindman was in a secret room, with silvery light flowing on his hands, and he looked very beautiful. The silver light seemed to float in the air to form a strange pattern, but because the memory was so long ago, it seemed very blurry, and I can't recall what the pattern was now. Then Vindman found Xiaoxia and seemed to draw a drop of blood from Ahashia. It didn't hurt at all, just a slight numbness, and then he turned and left. After returning for a while, Vindman had obvious disappointment on his face. Then Ahashia fell asleep. This also caused his memory to be blurred and he thought the scene was just a dream. Now it seems obvious that it is probably true. Since the superpower shows that he has qualifications, it is likely that he has the qualifications to become a Silver Lantern Master. But since Vindman has a look of disappointment on his face, if this memory is correct, it means that this qualification is obviously far from his expectations. And requirements. Garin sat cross-legged on the bed and analyzed it carefully. This body's intelligence is a bit low, which vaguely affects his thinking speed. It's a flaw that your IQ is too low. Garin sighed speechlessly. Should we consider adding some intelligence first to ensure that the calculations are correct? He originally thought that his IQ was average, but compared with this body, he was obviously at the genius level. This gave him an inexplicable sense of superiority. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 236. Recalling Vindman's appearance at that time, Galen even more suspected that Vindman did not teach his son the knowledge of Silver Lantern Masters, most likely because Ahashia's IQ was too low. It gradually fell silent outside, and the sounds of people and footsteps gradually disappeared. Only the occasional howl of wolves could be heard in the distant mountains and forests. The night is getting deeper and deeper. Looking at the dark night sky outside the window, Garin gradually calmed down. Some impetuous hearts gradually calmed down. Unconsciously, his thoughts drifted back to the previous direction. In 2 years, I was able to reach the top of the world in the last world, but I don't believe that in this world I can only accept my fate. He sat cross-legged, his eyes shining brightly in the night. Recalling everything about the previous world, familiar faces like Xianflan, Old Man Gaywo, Andrilla, the King of Nightmares, Ying-Er and Uncle kept appearing in front of my eyes. Garin slowly closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Hiss. A blast of cool air was sucked into his lungs, refreshing him. Silver Lantern Master. He sat silently on the bed, reorganized his thoughts, and carefully searched and thought about possible ways to enter the field of Silver Lantern Master. If it is really because of IQ, then going to Vindman directly will definitely cause problems. No one will believe that someone can suddenly become smarter for no reason, and have many different personal habits, especially the appearance of the Silver Lantern Master. If you are not stupid, then this article is unfortunately denied for the time being. He put aside Vindman and continued to think. The next step is to find other Silver Lantern Masters. Self-study is definitely not possible. It is a waste of time. And if you don't communicate and understand the outside world, you will be stuck in your own ways. You don't know how you will die by then. He recalled carefully what he saw in the scene, and what a valuable scenario in this regard. The picture was a bit huge, so he had to browse quickly one by one. Time passes minute by second. Secret martial arts world. Garin Xianfran was killed by a nuclear bomb and a volcanic eruption, and the smoke island completely swelled and became the top of a huge crater. Known as the Black Smoke Pot Crater. Only a small half of the world's elite who participated in the Battle of Smoke Island managed to escape, and many of them left more or less sequelae. For a time, the martial arts strength of the entire world declined. Half a month after the volcano erupted, the Nightmare King moved into Bioun Gate and joined forces with Star Ring Gate to stabilize the martial arts situation in the south. Everyone began to take the boat with a plan and arrangements, preparing to go to the east. Due to the eruption of giant volcanoes on 3 continents, volcanic ash was mixed into the atmospheric circulation, causing the air on the 3 continents to become increasingly poor, the sky to be dark, and the oceans to be polluted. Plants and animals are also affected, and large amounts of toxic substances are scattered and circulated throughout the world. 1 year later, the Star Ring Gate, Bioun Gate, and the Siren Organization each acquired a giant ship, and under the explicit command of Andrilla, they set off towards the east one after another. At the same time, Garin's parents, sister, and uncle's family were all hypnotized by the Nightmare King and brought aboard. "Can you tell me how my brother died?" Ying-Er asked Andrilla, who was standing at the bow of the boat. Her waist-length purple-black hair was tied up at the waist and kept blowing in the wind. Appears slender and pure. Your brother Andrila was silent for a moment. He may be the strongest person in the world. The strongest person in the world. Yinger opened her eyes wide. Andrila looked far away into the sea and slowly recalled everything about Garan. On the journey of martial arts, he has reached an extreme that is unimaginable by ordinary people. His spiritual power has reached a state of complete integration. 3 years into his career, he has achieved countless victories, defeated many of the world's top players, and reached the pinnacle step by step. Andrila said lightly, as his sister, "You should be proud." "It's true." A voluptuous female voice came from behind the two of them. It was a nightmare. She changed into the same appearance as Yinger and walked over. Although the appearance is the same, the temperament is completely different from Yinger's own, without any sense of purity. It only took Garan 3 years to become the now recognized saint of fists. He killed the first divine general Palasha and became the strongest new first divine general. He was so powerful that he was no longer human. While Yinger was feeling sad, she also showed a hint of yearning. Listening to the two top experts' comments about her brother, she really felt a surge of emotion welling up from the bottom of her heart. The three people stood at the bow of the boat, immersed in memories for a while and said nothing. The three ships continued to sail quickly towards the eastern waters. Bang! Suddenly, a splash of water exploded high, less than 100 meters in front of the ship. The white water column suddenly dispersed, and a light rain fell on the deck. Alert! There's a black flag ahead. It's pirates, the sailor at the observation deck shouted loudly. The gunners on the deck took action hurriedly, each running to their own gun emplacements. Andrila raised her hand. "Raise the white flag." "White flag?" Yinger was slightly stunned. "Doesn't the white flag represent surrender?" She suddenly discovered that there were words written on the raised white flag, and it was not a simple white flag of surrender. And the writing on it? In the distant sea, on dozens of ships with black skull and crossbones flags of different sizes, several strong pirates looked here from a distance with binoculars. "It's Bayanman's ship. Let it go." The pirate ship turned around and left without any hesitation. Yinger stood on the bow of the ship, looking at the pirate ship in the distance, and suddenly felt a strange and shocking feeling in her heart. "This is the power of the world's most recognized master," Andrila said with emotion. 26 encounters with pirates, without exception, just raising this flag is enough. Whether it is the Immortal Palace, the Demon Elephant Sect, or other countries, they have all recognized that God General Garan is the strongest man on the ground. There is no one. Nightmare took over. At the last moment when Wiseman released the nuclear bomb, many experts saw the moment when Garan punched the sky. His spirit statue was also clearly visible above the smoke island. Andrila nodded. Actually, these pirates are not afraid of galleons, but a kind of respect. Respect for the courage and fearless spirit of warriors who dare to punch at the pinnacle of thermal weapons. Pirate King Mex himself is also a top warrior, but he failed to reach the smoke in time. Island, but I also saw the last scene of the majestic white gold statue on the sea. It's more about this kind of spirit than the strength of respect, Nightmare added. The spirit of Garan Lombard is now an extremely popular culture in the martial arts world and even in the armies of various countries. Some soldiers even have Garen's head tattooed on themselves. He symbolizes the ultimate in martial arts. The spirit of never giving up even in desperate situations. This is your brother. This is your brother. The two of them expressed the same emotion one after another. Yinger stood facing the sea breeze, as if a fire was burning in her heart. Her eyes were moist, but she didn't know whether it was sadness or pride. Woo! Suddenly, far away in the sea, a large group of black ships were neatly sailing in the opposite direction to them, towards the direction of the three continents. The piercing sound of the whistle was endless. The ships were densely packed with countless cannons, and the black color almost completely covered the blue sea. That was the Pirate King's response to the call from the Asgard to attack Wiseman's army. Andrila looked at the fleet from a distance and explained in a low voice. Silfran and Garin were both killed by nuclear bombs and volcanic eruptions, and the people of Asgard fell into madness. It seemed that the death of Silfran made one of their plans come to an end. The two men of Asgard wreaked havoc in the territory of Wiseman. Among them, the Firebird Mother detonated the ammunition depots of two military bases within 3 days, and also blew up a biochemical research base, causing tens of thousands of casualties and infections. The methods are not ordinary vicious. Weissman did not expect that detonating the Black Smoke Pot volcano would have such a huge negative impact. Now all countries in the world have formed a coalition to attack Weissman in an all-out manner. Nightmare said gloatingly. When we left, the Federation and Tulip, the coalition forces of the Republic, have officially captured the port of Wiseman Marsida. There are people from the Immortal Palace destroying it inside, and there are attacks from the World Coalition forces outside. Wiseman is completely finished this time. Andrila nodded. Garin thought silently, and he dug out scenes about the Silver Lantern Master one by one. Maybe it's because he doesn't have the influence of the god statue success, or maybe his strength is weakened in this world. Without invincible strength, there will naturally be no invincible confidence. But he is confident that even in another world, he can become a stronger being. The difference is how much time it takes. If you want to return to the previous world, you must ensure that no more accidents happen to you. Being forced to die and travel through time was something he couldn't grasp at all. He could not guarantee that after dying again, he would be transported to a completely unfamiliar world, or even die completely. If he wants to avoid this happening, he must first solve this problem in 2 years. After the peak battle with Xianflan, the surging mood and the gap between peak and ordinary gradually calmed down completely. Garin's thoughts were calmer than ever before. Suddenly an extremely subtle picture flashed through his mind. That's not right, he frowned and began to recall some vague memory scenes. Soon, a middle-aged man wearing a black hat appeared vaguely behind the group of people in the picture. The man was wearing a black tuxedo, white gloves, and held a short cane in his hand. Is it the Silver Lantern Master named Aining? He's not dead, Garin was slightly surprised. I immediately recognized the person in this picture. He suddenly got out of bed, took off his shoes, walked to the window and looked out. On the dark lakeside in the distance, wisps of black smoke can be faintly seen floating above the forest. Since he is not dead, it means that he is probably still alive in this battle. This is an opportunity. He took a closer look at the area around the burning land, and there were a few people holding torches finishing up. He stood by the window and waited for more than 10 minutes before the two people gradually walked away and left. He then put on his coat, put on his boots, and quietly left the room. After leaving the small building, Garin quietly approached in the direction he saw. Soon he returned to the vicinity of the burned place with ease. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 237. The ground was a black hard shell-like glass. It was hard to tell whether it was stone, metal, or earth. There was no grass or trees, just a bare patch. Everything melted into one. The explosion area completely turned into an oval-shaped black depression. Garin carefully began to circle around this area, and at the same time carefully checked the corners where a human body might be hidden. At night, only a faint moonlight fell from above. He could just barely make out the outlines of objects in the woods. The air was cool, with a touch of hot flashes, the residual heat after the fire. The ground is hot when you step on it, and you can feel it through your boots. Garin opened his eyes wide and circled the oval first, but found nothing. Then gradually expanded the scope. Time passes minute by minute, in the grass, in the bushes, in the gaps between stones, in the branches of big trees, etc. He carefully checked every possible hiding place, but unfortunately there was no sign of hiding. Instead, While searching for a bush, I almost crushed a nest of black swan eggs. Gradually, his search scope expanded to the lake. Garin believed that the person he saw in the picture must be the Silver Lantern Master named Aining. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and the most realistic opportunity. If he could find the Aining Silver Lantern Master and save him at such a critical moment, then it would be logical to ask to learn to become a Silver Lantern Master, and the success rate would be extremely high. As for the long search, Garin was not impatient at all. When he practiced secret martial arts, he kept training himself repeatedly. Many of the little skills he practiced were uncomfortable and even painful. He also persisted. It can be said that even without the help of supernatural powers, he will at least become an excellent martial artist within a certain period of time. It's just that his superpower gave him the key to reach the top. Compared to the beginning, this little bit of fatigue is nothing to mention now. He made up his mind to spend the whole night to see if he could find the Aining Silver Lantern Master. In such a terrifying explosion, the other party must have been seriously injured. Along the lake, he began to slowly examine the water. Soon, a vague black shadow attracted his attention. The black shadow floated on the water, motionless, and looked very humanoid. Garin quickly walked in, picked up a stone and threw it at it. Snapped. There was no movement, and the sound of the stone hitting it sounded like it was hitting a piece of flesh. Garin had a vague suspicion in his mind, and he walked closer. Suddenly I saw a little bit of the black shadow's true face. It was a human body that was completely charred and curled together. Next to the human body, there was a short, blackened cane floating. Maybe it's him, Garin felt relieved, stepping on the water and approaching the black shadow. He stretched out his hand to pull the man's body, and a pale face covered in black dust appeared in front of him. It was the Silver Lantern Master Aining. It's him, Garin finally felt completely relaxed. Hey! Are you still alive? Wake up! He reached out and patted Aining's face. I pressed this guy's belly and there was no water inside. He slapped Aining twice more. No response. He pressed his fingernails hard on Aining's philtrum point under his nose several times. Aining finally let out a weak moan. How are you? Do you need treatment? I'll take you to the hospital, Garin asked as if he didn't know him at all. I don't know why, but he always felt weird when he said this sentence. No, Aining said in an extremely weak voice. Son, I need some anti-inflammatory medicine, just a little bit will be fine. Garin frowned and pressed Aining's forehead, which was very cold. You are too weak. There was an explosion here just now and it is very unsafe. I will take you to my place. He couldn't help but drag Aining to the shore, then lifted him up and slowly returned to the small building where he was. After a few twists and turns, Aining passed out again and lost his voice. Garin carefully dragged Aining back to his small building without disturbing anyone. He cleaned some water plants from Aining's body and placed him on a lounge chair. Then light up the fire in the fireplace and drag it to the fire to bake. Garin squatted by the fireplace, flicking the flames and putting firewood inside. He looked back at Aining on the recliner. This is the first time I have taken care of others like this. When you wake up, if you don't repay me well, I will never be done with you, he whispered to himself. He was not sure if the Silver Lantern Master had anything extra. The investigative methods were used, so he simply followed the steps of accidentally discovering Aining in every word and deed, and even the words and deeds of a young man of this age were taken into account. Aining didn't move at all. He was lying on the couch, his face slightly rosy due to the warmth of the flames. Garin turned his head and continued to light the fire. He was a little surprised. Aining was obviously hit by the flame explosion, but he didn't have any burns on his body, but only shock injuries. After filling up the firewood, he went to find the first aid kit in the small building and dug out a few pieces of white pizzacin, which is the latest anti-inflammatory drug in the world. I poured a glass of boiling water from the water room. When he came back, Enning didn't know when he had woken up. He sat upright and looked at the red fire on the couch, not knowing what he was thinking. Hearing the footsteps, he looked up towards Garen. "Did you save me?" "Otherwise, who else do you think?" Galen asked. "This is the anti-inflammatory medicine you want. Take it yourself." He walked over and handed the water glass and pills to Enning. After taking the pills, Enning threw them into his mouth, drank some saliva, and swallowed them. "Thank you." He returned the water glass to Garen. "Why are you floating in the lake? The lake is freezing cold at night. Even if you want to swim, you have to choose a good time, right? The afternoon is good. Some of my guards also like to swim in the lake at this time." Garen put down the water glass. On the table next to him, "It's just not in the water area of Black Swan. If my father finds out, you will be dead." He shrugged and looked helpless. "My father hates other people polluting Black Swan the most. The water source of the water district, he is the lord of this land. If you are discovered by him, maybe it will be light to hang. I'm sorry. In fact, I don't like swimming in the middle of the night, but if I have to, I can't help it." Enning also learned to shrug his shoulders to express his helplessness. He drank some water, warmed himself up by the fire, and spoke much more smoothly. The accent is a bit melodious, and he is obviously not a local. "I also know that you can't help it, and I understand you." Garen nodded. "Unfortunately, I saw the fight between you and that guy. The loser always deserves sympathy. You have such a vicious mouth." Enning was speechless. "You should be happy because you survived and he probably died." "That's true." Enning nodded, with a hint of complexity on his face. "You just said you saw our fight." "Of course, it's very intense, just like a fantasy novel, and the fight is exciting." Garen answered honestly. Enning looked at Galen attentively. "You can see our fight. It seems that you are also a qualified person. So, you saved me. Is there anything I need to repay?" "Of course," Garen replied calmly. "I want you to teach me the art of fighting." "Do you know what that is?" Enning asked in a low voice. Then he reacted. "Yes, you are already qualified, so you definitely don't know this information. There should be someone in your parents or family who is one of us. But, why don't you learn from someone at home, but from someone like me, stranger?" "Because my father didn't teach me. My family is too poor and there's nothing I can do." Garen answered decisively. "The family is too poor." If Vindman knew about this cheating reason, even among the Silver Lantern Masters, the Terry Jones family was at a high level of financial resources, and they were miles away from being poor. Enning looked startled, and then seemed to be reminded of something in the past by these words. "That's right. I was too poor back then." The eyes he looked at Galen gradually softened. "Don't worry, since you saved me, I will arrange all your future expenses for you." "So you agreed?" Garen had a strange look on his face. If he had a calm expression at this time, it would be too fake and completely inconsistent with the status of a young man of this age. "You can call me teacher." Enning nodded. "I will teach you until you become a real one of us. I will repay you for saving me." "Is it that simple?" Garen was a little stunned. "It's that simple. I always feel it's a bit too hasty." Garen lowered his voice. "You have the qualifications, you don't look stupid, and you saved my life again. I have the financial resources, knowledge, and experience. Then everything is no problem. What else do you want from the process?" Enning said helplessly. "What if you don't have the qualifications?" Garen suddenly asked. "No, it won't work. Let me ask you, did you save me just to learn how to be a Silver Lantern Master?" "Yeah, otherwise who would be in the mood to hang out in the forest in the middle of the night?" "Is there something wrong with your brain?" Garen looked contemptuous. Okay, Enning was completely speechless. In fact, he originally suspected that this young man came to save him with a special purpose. But now that I heard the other party affirmatively admit it with a calm face, I felt that I was a little unsure. There was a pause. Then, one last question. He looked straight into Garen's eyes. "Tell me your name, young man." He raised the blackened short staff as if he was pointing at something. Garen was stunned for a moment, then showed a calm smile. "Ahashia, my name is Ahashia Terry Jones, but I prefer others to call me Galen." He knelt down on one knee, bowed his head slightly and saluted Aining. The short staff landed on his right shoulder, faintly flashing a hint of silver. Aining looked at Galen in front of him, with a hint of softness of memory on his face, as if he saw himself kneeling on one knee back then. "Following the ancient etiquette, I swear to never reveal any knowledge and skills imparted by my teacher. Silver above all." The two young voices seemed to sound at the same time, overlapping one another. He couldn't tell whether it was Garen's voice or his original self. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 238. A week later. Aining left quietly. Although his injuries were not healed, they no longer affected his actions. After writing a volume of notes to Garen, he left a address. "Just leave. Let Garen meet the above standards after studying the code, and then go find him." Galen didn't leave the manor for a whole week. He had breakfast with Vindman every morning, and then he was locked in a small building alone. No one was allowed. "Go in. Concentrate on studying that manuscript. This handbook records a lot of messy and fragmented knowledge points, without forming a system. Therefore, Garen cannot use the ability to read the whole. Read and absorb. Moreover, there is another key point, which is that the intelligence and physical fitness of this body Ahashia are too low, and there is no way to satisfy the superpowers. Basic conditions for learning. So I can only study honestly and step by step. The handbook has no name. It contains a large number of basic knowledge points about the Silver Lantern Master, all of which are basics. It was only after reading some of these things that Garen roughly understood the true secret principle of the Silver Lantern Master. This is a very strong group. They rely on a basic innate talent to be able to sense and control silver. I don't know from which generation, some geniuses among them accidentally discovered that the use of silver can trigger the resonance of mysterious power, so the Silver Lantern Master appeared. They used silver to shape totems of different objects, and used special structures and principles to finally ignite the totems and activate them. Be yourself. Assistant or subordinate. However, these totems themselves have no spirituality and are just equivalent to the second body of the Silver Lantern Master. Garen learned from the handbook that in order to become a Silver Lantern Master, 3 conditions need to be met. 1. Basic talent qualifications. This is the most basic thing. Without this, it is impossible to enter the circle. Even the shielding light set up by others cannot be seen through. 2. Precision mapping. The production of totems requires extremely precise silver drawing, not just flat, but also 3-dimensional. The accuracy requirements are very high. There's no one who doesn't have this talent. Fa became a Silver Lantern Master. This is the basic means and way to transform knowledge into strength. Third, basic techniques. As the main body, the Silver Lantern Master designs totems, makes totems, assists in totem combat work, and a series of spells. And totems can actually be divided into countless basic spells. A totem is like a complex machine with countless precision parts put together, and the technique is the basic precision part. It can also be used as a separate. Use magic to enhance certain aspects of the totem's abilities in a short period of time. These 3 points are the key to becoming a Silver Lantern Master. As for the basic techniques, there is actually a lot of basic knowledge that needs to be learned. Different Silver Lantern Masters, or each Silver Lantern Master, have their own accumulation of knowledge. The further you advance in knowledge, the stronger the totems you create. In fact, the totem is equivalent to the practical embodiment of their knowledge. Because everyone has different perceptions, even if the totem uses the same basic technique, will also vary. The handbook only records the basics of precision cartography for Garen to learn. This knowledge requires a steady enough wrist and a calm enough mind. To achieve a high degree of concentration, there should be no big fluctuations in emotions. This is also the reason why most silver illuminators are very quiet, because this is the basic operational requirement for precision drawing. He practiced in the manner for several days, but his results still made little progress. Obviously this body's talent is obviously not very good. The stability is really poor. Now that I am depressed, I can only wait for my physical fitness to recover a bit, improve my health, and then start learning quickly. Now I can only practice mechanically and repeatedly. This time, he couldn't take any shortcuts. He could only practice stability from scratch like other Silver Lantern masters. Territory near Terry Jones, Pareto family territory. The dense forest sea is like a dark green carpet, and a black and gray manor is built on the edge of a waterfall on the left. The balcony on the second floor of a building in the manor. Galen lay lazily on a recliner, squinting at the blue sky, listening to the melodious piano sound coming from the room. Almost comfortable. Going to sleep. The balcony was semicircular in white, and Garen was lying on a chair at the corner, wearing white casual clothes with silver trim and long sleeves and trousers. Her blonde hair blew in the wind. The sun shone on his upper body, reflecting a dazzling white halo. Zia, the indoor glass door was pushed open, and a young man with a black ponytail walked out. He looked at Ahashia lying on his back with slight surprise. "Don't go inside. Want to play a few games? Isn't this your favorite usually? Marlene and the others have set a table just for you. What happened today?" Garen tilted his head and glanced at the young man. "I don't want to play today. I've been thinking about the meaning of life lately." The young man looked startled. "What? The meaning of life?" He stood there blankly, looking at Garen with a ghostly look on his face. "I mean Shia, we have been best friends since childhood. If you have anything to say, please say it, but don't do stupid things out of your mind." "It's okay, I just have some insights recently." Garen waved his hand. "Okay, go quickly, otherwise those girls and boys inside will have to call you again." "Bailan, help me. Endalu wants to spread my cake." A girl's scream came from the room at the right time. "What are you doing again?" The young man turned around in a hurry and entered the glass door. There was a sound of chickens and eggs being beaten inside. Garen continued to squint his eyes boredly, looking at the slowly floating white clouds in the sky. "I was really reviewing the basic principles and knowledge points in the handbook in my mind. This is Ahasia's life. He goes out to party with 3 disabled friends every day. Today he goes to your house and tomorrow he goes to my house. Or we can go out together in a few days. Book a big hotel room and go out for picnics, hunting, and swimming occasionally. Gambling, horse racing, watching gladiators, and then getting together to drink and brag during the break. Occasionally, big things happen during festivals or some surrounding areas, and the 4 of them form a team. I will always rush over as soon as possible to watch the excitement. Out-of-town circuses and traveling magic troupes are some of the favorite activities of several people. The quartet is one of the 2 most prominent families in the aristocratic circle here, and Ahashia and Blandia Hafiz are 2 of the representatives. Characters: eating, drinking, having fun, doing whatever is fun. Balin's mother is the largest territorial lord in the Green Forest province. Her family's power is much stronger than that of Ahashia. Everyone usually regards her as their mother. Lord, Shia's position. As for the other 2, Andalu and Marin, they are also 2 girls from aristocratic families. They played with Blanchia when they were young. Although the family is a little weaker, it's not much different. The 4 people represented half of the aristocratic power in the entire Green Forest. These memories flashed through Garen's mind, and he recalled that when Ahashia was a child, 4 people stood together to compete with each other to see who could urinate farther. That was really not an ordinary shame. People's memories. How old are you, little brats? Between 2 boys and 2 girls, who can pee further while standing? Noble families are different from ordinary people. It is very easy to get anything they want. When I was a child, I learned a lot about etiquette and culture, so once I have time to play, I play like crazy without caring about anything. Under the connivance of groups of flatterers, all kinds of enjoyment have been played out, and only emptiness is left. So I want to find more exciting things to play. Just like the 4 of them now. If it weren't for the strict restrictions at home that don't allow things involving men and women, it would be harmful to the body. I guess I've already gotten tired of this part. What attracts the 4 of them the most now is the excitement in this area. Galen lay quietly on the recliner, reviewed the basic knowledge, took a rest and took a nap, and then continued to reminisce. If there's anything you can't remember, just tell me. Then he took out the small piece of paper he had copied from his pocket and looked at it. Time passed unconsciously. The room gradually became quiet. A visitor came to visit, but Bailan lazily refused. Then the 2 girls drove away the pianist and stayed there for a while. Pressing randomly makes a lot of noise. Amidst the noise, the glass door of the balcony opened again, and a tall girl wearing a black and purple skirt walked out. The girl with flaxen shawl hair walked over to Garen and squatted down. Hey, what's going on lately? Why do you always feel like you're out of energy? Leave me alone, I suddenly feel like I should grow up, Garen said calmly, imitating Ahashia's previous tone. Is it Sister Hathaway's business? The girl's not-so-pretty face showed a clear look. The astronomical secret order is not a big deal, it's not a big deal for me. I stole my uncle's one and made it up for you. She gritted her teeth and seemed to have made a lot of determination. Leave me alone, Andalou, I just feel uncomfortable. Garen straightened up and took a deep breath. I want to learn something recently and don't want to do this again. Mixed down. You said, we are already 20 years old, what will happen if we continue to mess around like this? Hasn't the family arranged everything? We don't have to worry about anything, just follow the script. Andalou smiled, but there was something hidden inside. There is a hint of unwillingness about it. When you're old enough, just get married, have children, and then just keep having fun. What's wrong with that? You say that, but actually you feel uncomfortable inside, right? Garen glanced at the girl. Who among us is not like this? Andalou asked. That's why I want to learn something and don't want to waste time. Garen was paving the way for his subsequent transformation. Forget it, just you, Andalou curled her lips in disbelief. She didn't know why, but she felt a little out of breath, so she turned around and went inside and ignored Galen. For some reason, she felt aggrieved and panicked as soon as she saw Garen talking seriously about wanting to learn something. Garen watched Andalou walk in and said nothing. He got up from the deck chair and stood on the balcony looking at the scenery below. The white waterfall pulled out the white horses and fell into the green pool. A few birds flew overhead from time to time, and several horses parked below. Cars and horses snorted from time to time. Everything seemed extremely quiet and peaceful. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 239. This is the most secluded manor in Balin. It can avoid many adults who want to flatter and build relationships with the 4 of them. These adults can always pull through various gaps. Various distant relationships emerge, making it impossible to refuse their request for just a visit. Then one after another, continuously, basically nothing. Time for yourself. Garin has been enjoying the luxurious life of a typical second-generation official these days. As the only son of a superior noble, once he comes out, he is surrounded by many powerful people every day. Come to visit, hoping to establish a relationship with Vindman through him. Only when Bailan and the others are together, do I have some free time to review the knowledge of the Codex. This is also what he agreed to do with the three of them. The reason for hanging out together. Although he seems to be living a leisurely life, he has to pretend all the time and spend a lot of time studying the Codex. So in fact, he has got to be quite tired. These days, while studying, he was also thinking about how to increase his strength. 2 years later, Baker Stone I will definitely come to Green Forest for revenge, and the Black Sky Society is now dissatisfied with Vindman. What seems like a quiet life is actually already in crisis. Garin decided that if he wanted to find a solution, he must first understand the specific situation of the entire Silver Lantern Master Circle. During the time he spent with his teacher Enning, he roughly learned that the Silver Lantern Masters were a very large group, with hundreds of millions of people in the entire Kuwaitan Empire. There are at least hundreds of thousands of Silver Lantern Masters. Except for the Silver Lantern Masters from the two major forces, Black Sky Society and Daiwa Society, most of them are ordinary Silver Lantern Masters. The proportion of ordinary silver lighting technicians, accounting for 90% of the total. In other words, in simple words, Black Sky Club and Daiwa Club belong to the top level, which is too far away from ordinary Silver Lantern Masters. Their whereabouts are mysterious and unpredictable. It is not known to the general public at all. In addition, most of the Silver Lantern Masters like to study knowledge and live a quiet life, and their social relations are not very good. There is even a lack of communication and they are unable to get the latest information. These are the general conditions of Silver Lantern Masters that Garin learned from Enin. After recalling the relevant information, Garin glanced at the attribute bar below his field of vision. Strength 0.9, Agility 0.8, Constitution 0.9, Intelligence 0.5, Potential 1872%. Possess the qualification of Silver Lantern Technician. Secret Martial Arts, God Statue Skill, Vientiane Fighting Skills. Full recovery time is 367 days, 1 year. Strength and intelligence have recovered a little bit, but it's too slow. Shia. Are you going to have a barbecue tonight? A beautiful girl with a purple ponytail rushed out and shouted to Garin, your goddess Guy Li also wants to participate. Do you want to come? Garin hesitated for a moment, he also wanted to see this woman who played the original Ahashia around. Okay, besides Guy Li, who else? There are 2 more friends of hers, both beautiful girls. The girl with purple ponytail said mysteriously, thank me, I took the initiative to bring them here for you. If it weren't for your poor spirits recently, I wouldn't be too lazy to take the initiative to be courteous. Thank you so much, cute and beautiful little Marlene. Garin quickly thanked her. It's dry and has no sincerity at all. Let's be more substantial. I like to listen to your poems the most. Have you made any new ones? Marlene came over and got closer. Asked. Suddenly, a faint scent of roses penetrated Garin's nose. What do you like most about listening to my poems? Garin's expression was dull for a moment. There are still people who like Ahashia's poems. This changes his worldview. Aesthetics is a huge impact. Yes, if you have any new works, read them out and let us all enjoy them. You are the most talented person among us. And Dalu also came out. Followed by Bailan. Bailan also had an expression of approval clearly on her face. Stop hiding it and twisting it, read it quickly, Bailan urged. Garin looked at the expectant expressions of the 3 people in front of him, and he began to wonder if there was something wrong with his aesthetic sense. The kind that makes him want to vomit just looking at it. Poetry actually has so many supporters. Read it quickly. Why are you so stunned? Isn't it because you have run out of ideas? No, I heard Shia's new poem last time. Don't let us down. This is one of our regular programs. Seeing the three of them staring at him expectantly, Garin felt a little sore in his balls. There is indeed poetry, but if he is asked to stand up and recite it seriously to three people, forget it. It will become a stain in his life. Well, I've been feeling a bit uncomfortable in my throat recently, so you should take a look at it yourself. Garin hurriedly took out the notes that Ahashia always carried. Ben took it out, stuffed it into Bai Ian's arms, and then walked into the indoor hall in a few steps. Bai Lan took out her notebook and opened it. Okay, let's see for ourselves. Beautiful lily. You are so fragrant, my goddess jealous, your face is like that flower pot. There is an extra word here, just like that. The flowers are as white and beautiful as ever. Bai Lan assumed the posture of an aria and began to sing loudly. Beautiful rose, don't worry that you are no longer beautiful, don't worry about whether you are ugly. Even if you become a lazy toad, I will never dislike you. I will never. I love you conditionally. Rose. Ah. Rose. Ah. 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 Three rising tones in a row. In the room, Garin felt numb all over, and goosebumps appeared in large areas. What a poem! You are indeed my best friend Ahashia, Bai Lan praised loudly from the balcony. I want to publish this poem in a love poetry magazine. Let everyone see, this is the poem of my brother Ahashia. You see, especially the last three arias, they are simply a stroke of genius. My favorite sentence is, even if you turn into a toad, I will never disapprove of it, it's so touching, Marlene echoed on the side. Xia, it's so uninteresting to write such a good poem and still hide it, Bai Lan shouted dissatisfied from the balcony. Garin was on the sofa indoors, feeling like this life, no. Last life, last life. All faces were lost. It's up to you, Garin replied weakly. What level of appreciation does it take to realize that these things belong to the category of good poetry? Bai Lan and the other two recited the poem many times on the balcony and had a heated discussion. Even the servants below could hear the sound clearly. This. He walked into the room with unfinished ideas. Xia, what's wrong with you? Why don't you feel well? Bai Lan watched in shock as Garin collapsed on the sofa, motionless. Indeed. The poems written by people who are addicted to love are indeed better than usual. Don't mention poems to me, I feel like vomiting if you mention them, Garin responded in a very painful tone. Sure enough, writing poetry consumes too much energy. That's right. Writing such a famous line must take a lot of energy. Then you should rest first. The time will come soon. We will call you. All right. Then let's go prepare first. It's up to us to choose the location, right? Good. Click. As the door closed, the living room suddenly became a little empty. There were only two little maids standing respectfully in the corner, quietly waiting for orders. Garin lay on the sofa and relaxed for a while, recovering from his speechlessness. He grabbed the black notebook, closed it tightly and threw it aside. What's this? He stood up, returned to the balcony, and lay down on the deck chair to rest. Then he took out a small piece of paper from his pocket and began to memorize the previous information at random. Material. Also recall something important. Regarding Jealous, who was about to meet that night, he found some relevant memories in Ahash's memory. This is a very beautiful woman, with a slim waist, long legs, and a charming face. She has a pair of watery peach blossom eyes, and she always shows a pity expression when she looks at people. Especially when looking at you head on with big eyes, those clear eyes always make people lower their heads in shame and dare not look directly. But Garin saw something was wrong with this woman. This woman, who was supposed to be very weak, like a social butterfly, actually showed herself to be able to take the initiative in a series of occasions and banquets. Look. What's even more weird is that many big shots bow their heads and give way to her because they feel ashamed of themselves. Her body is unusually soft and her skin as delicate as the finest white jade. Jealous Zambonita Garin narrowed his eyes. This woman should have practiced fighting skills and joint skills for assassination. Really? It's not simple. Windman allowed this woman to play with his son without interfering. For what reason? Recalling Windman's words. Had no intention of causing trouble for this woman, but wiped his son's ass and finished it off by himself. Garin had some vague doubts about Gyla C's identity. Let's see then. If he is really a spy who has practiced assassination, it will be a good time to see what the level of fighting in this world is. He shook his shoulders, and there was a slight crunching sound. Although his body recovers very slowly, as a peak warrior, he still has a fighting level no less than E level. In the previous world, E class was already a letter level force, just below the fighter. Ordinary small firearms, as long as they were not top-notch firearms. Hands, it is difficult to pose a threat to them. He is also a person who can open doors and establish factions when going out. After driving the two little maids out, Garin stood alone in the living room, repracticing some techniques of restraint. After a while, Bailan came and called the door, saying that everything was ready and asked him to go over and get ready to go. They planned to stay in the mountains for a few nights and return home in a few days. By the way, you can also go hunting in the mountains. Garin asked the coachman to go back and inform his family, and then got into the carriage with Bailan and others, and drove towards the depths of the forest and sea of trees, with several powerful guards closely guarding him. Follow along and protect the safety of the four people. They were going to the nearby Haihua mountain, which was more than 10 miles away, and planned to have a picnic there. It is sparsely populated, has the most wild animals, and is also the newest. Pick a hunting spot. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 240. Between a sea of dark green trees, there is a light green lane inlaid, like a winding and crawling earthworm, with different thicknesses and twists and turns. A carriage drove slowly down the driveway, followed by a group of black-clad guards on horseback. The sky gradually darkened, and the setting sun was obscured by thick clouds. Only a faint red light could be seen. The carriage quickly stopped at the end of the driveway. The old man driving the carriage stabilized the carriage and turned around and shouted loudly. "We can only go here, the cars in front can't get in." "I got it, old bit, please go back first. Come and pick us up here in 2 days." The carriage door opened, and a young man in black tight-fitting clothes jumped out and said loudly, "Okay, master." One by one, young men in colorful clothes jumped out of the carriage. There were 2 men and 2 women in total. They were all wearing black clothes, similar to hunting clothes, with their trousers tucked into long brown riding boots, and sharp daggers tied to their waists. "Bailan, where exactly did you decide?" another boy asked casually. He had blonde hair, handsome face, and gave off a gentle and weak temperament. It was Garin who came with his companions. "It's just in front. We still have to walk a distance. Let's go there first. I'll ask a guard to pick up Jealous and the others." "Shia, do you want to come with us?" Bailan looked at Garin. "Forget it, I'm with you." Garin shook his head. He was carefully looking at the surrounding environment. The plants here seem to be very old, and it seems that few people come here. "That's right," Bailan said with a little complacency. "I still ask some traveling merchants who often trekked, and finally picked out the areas they didn't go to. Of course, no one came." "Is there any danger?" Marin combed her long purple hair on the side with a worried expression on her face. "Don't worry, even if there is danger, we still have so many guards here, so what are you afraid of?" Bailan spread her hands and pointed at a group of guards riding behind her. The people I brought this time are all experts from the family. They are absolutely elite. There is no need to worry about safety. Bai Lan walked up to a tall, strong, muscular man and patted the man's chest. He is Hansen. He once tore a forest black bear alive. He is the most powerful Hercules. He is also the captain of the guard responsible for our safety this time. Hansen was a full head taller than Bai Lan, his limbs were as thick as elephant legs, and his tight-fitting black leather armor was almost torn apart by the muscles on his body, which made people frightened to see him. "Leave it to me, Hansen, no problem." Hansen patted his chest and made a muscle-building movement. It immediately made the two girls burst into laughter. "Oh! Hansen! Hansen! Hansen!" The guards at the back pulled out their scimitars at the same time, raised them high and shouted, cheering for their captain. "Our security visibility is all entrusted to you, brother Bai Lan." Andalus smiled and approached Bai Lan. "Don't get involved with me, I still think Shia's side is more reliable." Marin walked to Garin. "Brother Shia, you must protect me," she said in a deliberately delicate tone. "Xia is busy pursuing Guy Li, so she doesn't have time to care about you." Andalus struck mercilessly. Garin shrugged speechlessly. "I will protect you, don't worry." He turned back and glanced at the middle-aged man standing behind him. This man was wearing dark green long-sleeved trousers, was silent, and wore a black metal elbow pad on his right elbow. Probably in his 30s. His name is Yulin, and he is the bodyguard sent by his father Vindman to protect him. Garin lowered his voice helplessly. "Actually, you also know that the safety of us has always been the responsibility of Balan guards, and we ourselves are too lazy to bother. It's just that there was a big explosion in my family's territory this time, so my father sent someone to protect me." "So, this person is very powerful." Marlene stuck out her tongue. Garin nodded. "Wu Lun is indeed very strong, even in the last secret martial arts world, he was not at an average level. Judging from his walking pace, reactions, as well as the murderous intent and eyes on his body, he is definitely a master who has dozens of lives at his disposal. Only such people can look at other people's eyes with a hint of indifference and contempt." However, he didn't see Wu Lun take action with his own eyes, so it was hard for Garin to judge his specific strength. But what is certain is that Wu Lun looks inconspicuous, but his strength is definitely not inferior to Bai Yan's guard captain Hansen. Seeing that Galen and the two were talking about him, Wu Lun politely pressed his right hand on his chest, lowered his head and smiled. After probably introducing the people, the four of them knew what they were doing. Led by Hansen, the convoy protected four people on both sides. The group of people then continued to walk into the dense forest ahead. The machete continued to split through the dense bushes and grass on the ground, cutting a path. Snakes, rabbits, and mountain rats popped out from time to time, causing the two girls to scream artificially. Marin always likes to be close to Garin, while Andalou is with Bai Lan. As the team went deeper and deeper into the woods, the four of them soon identified a slightly flat clearing. The guards began to cut down the surrounding weeds and trees to create a place for activities. Hansen and Yulun dispersed and patrolled the surrounding area, driving away some poisonous snakes and insects. The four of them had just stopped to rest for a while, and soon there was a sound of activity behind them, as if someone was following them from behind. Soon, a group of people wearing dark green clothes quickly approached here. "It's Gillis," Marlene whispered beside Garin. Her eyes were a little complicated, but she concealed them very well. Garin looked around and saw that Bai Lan, Andalou, and Marin were all staring at him. "I know I can't do anything if I don't do something. After all, Ahashia's favorite person in the past was Guy Li, and she had a big fight with her cousin who loved him the most." He stood up helplessly and took the initiative to face the team. "Is it Miss Gillis?" he asked loudly. "Xia? Is that you?" a response came from the team immediately. The crowd parted and a woman in a white skirt walked out with her skirt lifted. She was wearing a belted dress, long dark brown hair that fell over her shoulders, and heavy makeup. Jean Gallen immediately thought of those non-mainstream beauties on Earth. She has an oval face, fair and delicate skin, and her eyes are enlarged with dark green eyeshadow and outlined into perfect almond eyes. It seems that her eyebrows have also been painted. They are standard willow eyebrows, thin and dark green. Straight nose, pink lips. Plus a slim waist and slender legs. There are also small and exquisite crystal pendants on the ears. This is a beautiful woman who looks very noble at first glance, and she knows how to dress herself up. In fact, her real appearance is much worse than it is now. But for a naive boy like Ahashia, such makeup will definitely make him fascinated and unable to take his eyes away. Compared to Guy Lee, Marlene, who is the prettier among the four but doesn't know how to wear makeup, is like a little duck next to the white swan. I haven't seen you for a long time. When I heard that you were coming this time, I thought, it's nothing, so I came to see you and just relax. I wonder if you'd like to welcome me. Guy Lassie's voice was very calm, giving people a feeling of great self-control. Not too big but not too small, the ups and downs of the sound seemed to be controlled at any time and anywhere. Welcome, of course you are welcome. Garen imitated the former Ahashia, looking fascinated and unable to turn his eyes away. It was as if his soul had been seduced by Guy Lassie. Then he followed Ahashia's behavior in his memory and reached out to grab Jealous's hand, wanting to put it to his mouth and kiss it. But he dodged it. A trace of impatience flashed in Guy Lea's eyes. As soon as Ahashia touched her hand, he would chew it with his mouth for a long time and just didn't want to let it go. So at first she should have stretched out her hand to salute, but she deliberately pretended not to think of it. Let's think about how to have a picnic first. I have two companions who are coming together. Guy Lee said hello to Bailan, Marin, and Andalu one by one, and she was very polite. The 5 people began to direct the guards, and they used cut canes and branches to insert into the ground to form a simple fence around them. Then the tents brought over began to be erected one by one. Soon Guy Lassie's friends also arrived. They were also 2 beautiful girls, one named Maria and the other Zena. They only brought 1 or 2 guards with them, and they chatted and laughed with Guy Lassie. Gallen was on the side, courting Guy Lee anytime and anywhere, and seemed extremely enthusiastic, while the other party talked to him without saying a word. Soon several tents were erected, all covered with large nets hung with green grass, making the dark green tents inconspicuous and blending into the woods. A total of 7 or 8 guards also set up several large tents farther away for accommodation. Garen took advantage of the time to set up camp and wandered around the surrounding area, roughly checking the surrounding terrain. Marlene volunteered to join him. The excuse was to collect dry firewood. Under the protection of Yalun, the two began to collect firewood in the surrounding area. "Sia, do you really like Gillis?" Marlene asked in a low voice while collecting firewood. "Do you even need to ask this?" Garen replied casually. "Then what do you like about her?" "I like everything. The most important thing is, don't you think Guy Lassie is beautiful?" Garen directly copied Ahashia's original words. The two of them walked a few steps and picked up some twigs. They were not collecting firewood at all, but chatting and taking a walk. Wu Lun, who was watching behind him, secretly curled his lips. "Then we have a good relationship?" Marlene asked again. "Definitely," Garen replied. If Guy Lassie and I fell into the water at the same time, which one would you save first?" Marlene suddenly asked seriously. "Isn't this nonsense?" "Of course it's jealous. Can't you swim?" Garen also saw that Marin liked Ahashia, but he also answered completely according to Shia's original memory and impression. Although this answer is very inconsistent with his character, it is the answer that best suits Ahashia. A hint of helplessness flashed in Marin's eyes, and she felt a little depressed. Garen bent down and picked up another dry twig. Suddenly his palm brushed against a black and green plant on the side, and a small cut was made on the back of his hand. He frowned slightly, his current weak physical condition making him extremely unaccustomed to it. Just as he was about to straighten up, his vision suddenly stopped at the corner of his eye. This is... He carefully pushed aside the unknown plant with sharp leaves with his hands, revealing the small purple-black flowers underneath. This is purple rhododendron grass. Garen's heart suddenly became filled with turmoil. This world actually has the legendary extinct purple rhododendron. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 241. As a top master who had read a large number of secret martial arts notes in the previous world, Garen still remembered that many of the travel notes and martial arts experience notes of his predecessors also recorded many prescriptions that could strengthen the body and calm the mind. Many of them have magical and powerful effects. It's just a pity that because it is so old and belongs to ancient medicine, many materials cannot be found, and even if they are found, they will only be of incomplete vintage. I can only regret giving up. This purple rhododendron is one of the main herbs in one of the ancient prescriptions. These recipes were originally included in the handbook, and Garen memorized them all at once. Anyway, with the help of supernatural powers, memorizing these is completely effortless. Unexpectedly, I actually saw rare medicinal materials that should have been extinct. Good thing Galen remained calm and scanned the surrounding area, and unexpectedly found 2 purple rhododendrons under this sharp-leafed plant. If you can make the pills and potions from ancient prescriptions and use them on yourself, the recovery time will definitely be greatly shortened, and it may even have a stronger effect. And looking at the age of this purple rhododendron, and comparing it with the recorded data, it must be thousands of years old. The effect of such medicine is absolutely powerful. Don't let people notice anything strange. Garen pretended to be nonchalant, straightened up, and chatted with Marin without saying a word before returning to the camp and putting the collected dry firewood together. But in my heart, I remembered the location where I just found the purple rhododendron. He couldn't wait to check out this forest to see what other rare and undiscovered medicinal materials there were in this world. And what he wanted to do more was to see what other medicinal materials besides purple rhododendron existed that could be paired with it. If you can find all the records on the prescription, it won't be a troublesome thing to quickly restore the strength of the secret weapon in a short time. Ah! Snake. Just as he sat down to rest, planning to find an excuse to go out to dig for medicine later, suddenly the exclamations of the 3 women from Gyli were heard not far away. His heart moved, he stood up and rushed towards Gyli. At the same time, pay attention to observation. Gillis and her female companion were getting up and running over in panic. However, unlike the 2 female companions, although Gyli herself was in a hurry and running with her skirt in hand, if you look closely, you can see that the panic in her eyes is a bit fake. Garen looked at her steps again. It was obvious that she was stepping firmly. She looked messy, but in fact it was difficult for her to fall and trip. Sure enough, he is not an ordinary person. He took a few steps forward, made a charming look, and reached out to hug Gyli's waist. Oops! Gyli was immediately stirred by something, and she threw herself into the arms of Bailan, who had just arrived beside Garen. I'm sorry, does it hurt you? She whispered to Bailan with tears in her eyes. It's okay. Bailan blushed and stuttered in reply. Garen stood aside, snorted, and hurried forward. Gyli, are you okay? Are you injured? Are there any bites? I will suck it with your mouth. Don't be embarrassed. If you are bitten by a venomous snake, you must suck it with your mouth. Otherwise, it might happen. Infection, poisoning. I'm plagued by illness. No, 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 haha. Gyli declined with a somewhat ugly look on her face. She suddenly discovered that Shia was more difficult to deal with today than before. Even if you get bitten, you're a man, so why don't you bite me with your mouth? At this time, I am just a doctor and you are just a patient. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. Among all the people present, I believe I am the best at taking snake venom. I am responsible for your safety. Otherwise, if the snake venom enters the body, you may be seriously injured. Seriously ill, maybe even disabled, Garen replied with dignity. He just wanted Guy Lee to push him away to avoid trouble. It's not that serious. The people around him were speechless, including Bai Lan, but it was obvious that Ahashia was deliberately exacerbating the consequences and creating opportunities, so no one stood up to refute. No, I wasn't bitten. Guy Lee felt like she was in big trouble. Stand up straight from Bai Ian's arms. Really? That's so awesome. Haha, haha. Garen deliberately missed a word, which made Guy Lassie feel chills. By the way, Miss Gillis, when you are injured, would you like to listen to the poem I wrote for you? He quickly took out a small black notebook from his arms. No, no need. As soon as she mentioned poetry, there was an unnatural feeling on Guy Lassie's face. I appreciate your compliment, but I don't feel very well right now. Can you let me have a good rest? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Garen took a step forward and said with a serious face, I learned a massage technique not long ago, which will definitely make your uncomfortable parts more comfortable. I can give you a massage right away. Guy Lassie said helplessly. I'm just a little tired and want to take a nap. Can you spare some time for me? I know you are a good gentleman who considers ladies, right? Is that so? Garen deliberately showed a disappointed look. Okay, I'll be around. If you need anything, just ask me. I'll be there right away. Okay, I will definitely do it. Guy Lassie stretched out her hand to gently trim the hair on Garen's forehead. Don't be too tired, you should also have a good rest. Just when the cold fingertips touched Garen's forehead, for a moment, the skin of both of them shrank slightly. Huh, a strange color flashed in Guy Lassie's eyes. When vital points like the forehead and eyebrows were touched, only fighting masters would have the instinctive reflex to dodge. But how could the unlearned noble boy in front of him react like this? Maybe your fingers are too cold? She guessed in her mind. Garen also realized that he was a little exposed, and continued to show an obsessed look on his face. At the same time, he reached out to catch Guy Lea's hand, but missed it. Go and rest. Gillis smiled at him, turned and walked towards her tent. Garen stood there, looking at Guy Lassie's back infatuatedly, his eyes obviously falling obscenely on the swaying round buttocks. And his unabashedly scorching eyes were obviously felt by Guy Lee. She felt as if her buttocks and even her skirt couldn't block those lustful eyes, and goosebumps arose all over her body. The steps towards the tent couldn't help but become hasty. It wasn't until Gillis entered the tent that Garen felt slightly relieved. The simplest and most direct way to deal with such a scheming woman is to be direct and obscene enough. As long as the opponent still cares about his body, this tactic will definitely have good results. It can force her to be helpless and never want to see herself again. Garen knew his level of communication, and if he was asked to go around the other party, he would definitely be betrayed without even knowing what happened. Instead of using your shortcomings to compete with the other party's strengths, it's better to resolve the matter directly in a way that suits your own style. This is also related to his martial arts spirit. He will seize the slightest flaw and pursue him fiercely without giving his opponent the slightest chance. Garen thought about the next situation for a moment. On the surface, he walked towards his tent with a look of despair. A group of people used the dry food they brought for lunch on the first evening, and lit a bonfire in the evening. Balin recited the love poem written by Shia loudly. Obviously, except for the 3 members of their group of 4 who cheered loudly, the rest of the group they all looked like they were constipated, but they had no choice but to echo and applaud them regardless of their conscience. Guy Lassie and her 2 female companions were shy and hid in the tent. Judging from the expressions on other people's faces, it was obvious that this was not the first time he had used this trick. Garen was thinking about those purple rhododendrons, and seemed a little absent-minded. Others thought he was thinking about roses, which was just in line with the situation. As for whether Guy Lee was a Silver Lantern Master or not, he wasn't sure. Unlike the Secret Warriors, the Silver Lantern Master does not have overly powerful energy and spirit. He usually looks like an ordinary person. No one knows who the Silver Lantern Master is until the final moment of the outbreak. But after actually meeting him, Garen was certain of one thing. Guy Lassie's attitude towards Ahashia was not proactive. It was obvious that she was just teasing him casually and did not deliberately provoke him. Even if there is such an intention, it is not taken too seriously. If that was all, then everything would be fine. Inside the rose tent, the frowning Guy Lassie sat in the tent with her legs together, looking at the two female companions in front of her. Why has this Ahashia become so annoying all of a sudden? He used to be quite gentlemanly. I thought he was very patient, but I didn't expect him to be as impatient as other men. No, more so than other men. Be direct. Maria has long milky white hair, which gives people a delicate and unruly look. She rolled her long hair carelessly, looking a little careless. Aren't all men the same? Sister Guy Lassie, you are a bit playful. If you don't provoke him at the beginning, won't it be over? I can't help it, there are some requirements from above, otherwise I wouldn't be looking for trouble and just panicking. Guy Lassie glared at her. I'm not like you, I have a good mother and father. Hey, don't get involved with me, Xena on the side said dissatisfied, but I think this Ahashia is pretty good. Love should be direct and intense. It's nothing to be secretive and go around. If you like someone, say it loudly and show your heart to them without any secret. She said nonchalantly. Xena has dark brown shoulder-length hair and exudes a pure and generous girl next door temperament. She is also a very beautiful girl. The youngest of the three who lost his life looked to be no more than 19 years old. Her skin is fair and rosy, but her figure is slightly inferior to that of Guy Lassie and the other two. Her breasts are obviously only about the size of a hand, which does not conform to everyone's aesthetic view of body shape. Much better than the guy my dad arranged for me, Xena pouted, took out a small dressing mirror, quickly combed her hair a few times, and combed the bangs on her forehead to the right. You can take it yourself if you like. Guy Lee was speechless. I really can't help it, Xena, please give me your father, okay? You can get it yourself if you want, Xena replied carelessly, pursed her lower lip, and looked around in the mirror, seemingly dissatisfied with her own image. However, neither girl saw a trace of suspicion flashing in Guy Lassie's eyes when she mentioned Ahashia. She suddenly remembered the scene just now, her reaction when her fingers touched Shia's forehead. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 242. Guy Lee flicked her fingers and narrowed her eyes. Sister, what are you thinking about? Xena asked doubtfully from the side. Nothing, I'm going for a walk, you guys go to sleep first. Guy Lassie stood up, opened the tent curtain, and walked out. A few guards stood sparsely outside, and the voices of Bailan and others could be heard faintly from the creek in the distance. The sky was getting dark, and only the campfire was getting brighter in the camp. Guy Lee said hello to several guards, and then walked towards the grass with a female guard, making a gesture of convenience. It's not easy for other people to chase her anymore. She walked into the grass and looked at the bushes that were half a person tall in all directions. You go and keep watch around first, she whispered to the female guard. Yes. When the others walked away, Guy Lassie flicked her fingers. Two dots of blue light suddenly flew out of the fingertips and fell into the bushes, looming like little fireflies. Go try that, Ahashia, she ordered through lip language. The blue firefly light suddenly slipped into the grass and disappeared completely. Guy Li showed a thoughtful expression on the spot. An excuse to take a walk while out to collect firewood again. Garen once again led Yulun back to the previous position. He carefully walked to the edge of the purple grass and patrolled around pretending not to care. Soon, he found 100 thorn grass not far from the edge of the purple rhododendron. It had big leaves and thick stems. It was obviously quite old. Centipede is another commonly used ingredient for washing medicine. Galen secretly noted it in his mind. He started to patrol around again. Wulun followed closely behind him, and he didn't know what he was doing. In the entire surrounding forest area, Galen discovered more than a dozen purple rhododendrons one after another, but there were much fewer albino grasses, only 3. This made him feel more and more satisfied. After walking around in the surrounding woods for a few times, the sky gradually darkened to the point where he couldn't see clearly, and Garen was ready to go back. Surrounded by dense trees and bushes, they were standing on a slope and had unknowingly reached a place far away from the camp. Under the dim light, there was darkness everywhere in the woods, and the green plants and trees also turned into dark green. "Master, what are you looking for?" Wulun asked boredly behind Garen. "My cousin likes flowers and plants. I would like to find some flowers and plants that she likes and bring them back to her," Garen replied casually. "It's just that it will take a few days for us to come out. Although I have selected some targets, it is too early to dig. There's no use going back." Wulun nodded in understanding. Suddenly, he reached forward suddenly and caught a small green snake that pounced on Garen. The palm of his hand pinched the little snake 7 inches away accurately, without missing a beat. With a gentle rub, the little snake suddenly hissed and its 7 inches were flattened. He was thrown to the ground casually. Garen then looked slightly frightened. Another green leaf snake. There are so many little snakes in this forest. If you hadn't discovered it earlier, this one might have bitten me. It's nothing. This place is obviously suitable for green leaf snakes to grow. It doesn't matter if there are more. No matter how venomous the snake is, it will be in vain if it can't bite people, regardless of the understatement of the answer. Suddenly, a blue dot fluttered toward the two of them. It was a small blue snake, which looked lazy and moved slowly and smoothly. Both Garen and Garen saw the snake. "What kind of snake is that?" Garen asked with a frown. "I don't know. The blue one should be a blue-scaled snake, but there should be very few such snakes in this kind of environment here." Wulun also frowned slightly. "Be careful. This kind of snake is very fast and explosive. You should stay back first." Okay. Upon hearing this, Garen immediately hid behind Yulun. Wulun put on black leather gloves and looked a little serious. The blue-scaled snake has hard skin and is extremely fast, making it not an easy opponent to deal with. He had been a jungle ranger for several years, earning money for his meals. Living in this kind of jungle was commonplace, but it also felt a little tricky. It doesn't matter if it's just him, but there's a young master behind him who must be protected, which is a bit troublesome. Shouldn't there be a blue-scaled snake here, he wondered, and began to stare at the lazy blue-scaled snake. This little guy, less than half a meter long, seemed to have noticed the two people in front of him. It raised its head and made a subtle hissing sound, as if to warn the two people to leave the direction it was heading. "Let's leave here slowly," Wulun whispered. "Move slowly, don't rush." "Good." The two of them moved slowly and slowly to the left. Suddenly, a little blue star burst out and hit Yulun's face. The blue star spurted out from the mouth of the blue-scaled snake, pulling out a thin blue line in mid-air, beautiful and crystal clear. At the same time, a fishy and pungent smell spread quickly, as if the place suddenly became a stinking ditch. Just when Blue Star was about to come on Wulun's face, he suddenly raised his right hand to block it in front of him. Puff! The blue star landed on the glove, making a hissing corrosive sound. It was a thick blue venom. "Run!" Wulun yelled, quickly took off his gloves, and shot out a small dagger. but he was immediately avoided by the blue-scaled snake. One person and one snake confronted each other, and no one dared to distract themselves. When Garin heard the shouting, he ran towards the camp. There were many guards there. As long as he ran there would definitely be no big problem. There are also experts and veterans who specialize in dealing with snakes among the guards. The forest in front of them quickly backed up, their legs making a swishing sound in the grass and bushes, and Garin did not stop at all. The reaction, speed, and accuracy that Wu Lun and the blue-scaled snake just exploded have reached a very high level. It is impossible for him to avoid the blue-scaled snake's venom without exposing his strength. Wu Lun's violent shouting came from behind again, but it was getting farther and farther away, and the distance was obviously getting farther and farther. Garin ran forward quickly, feeling slightly relieved. He slowly slowed down and wanted to look back. Puff! Suddenly, a blue shadow swooped down from the tree branch behind. Straight into his face. Before I even touched it, I smelled the same strong fishy smell as before. It's not an accident. Garin instantly understood that this was definitely someone deliberately testing. Before he had time to think about it, he stumbled deliberately. Ouch, he yelled and fell to the right, just in time to avoid the blue shadow's attack. With a snap, the blue shadow hit the surface of a white stone on the ground, causing the stone to crack immediately. Garin was half sitting on the ground, and then he could clearly see what this thing on the ground was. It was the same blue-scaled snake as before. The head of the blue-scaled snake was scratched, but no blood flowed out. It stared at Garin, and its slender body swam towards him slowly and gracefully. Garin looked extremely frightened and did not dare to move. He could only half sit on the ground, staring at the blue-scaled snake swimming over in fear. Strangely, he actually saw something familiar in the snake's eyes. Garin had a trace of doubt in his heart. At this moment, the blue-scaled snake suddenly paused, seemed to be attracted by something, turned around and swam away in the other direction. Ignore galleons again. Garin slowly got up and looked pale, but the doubts in his heart were indeed greater. In the woods in the distance, Gailassi looked at the blue-scaled snake swimming back with a puzzled expression. The reaction is normal, but that fall was too coincidental. She frowned slightly. She looked down at a black scroll in her hand. Forget it, let's get down to business first. Terry Jones Estate, Vindman House. In the study room with reddish-brown accents. Vindman was sitting opposite a man in black robes. The oil lamp on the table on one side released a dim and quiet yellow light. The yellow light formed a yellow circle of light, which just encompassed the two of them. Everything outside the aperture is dark. What's the purpose of your visit this time? Just tell me. Vindman crossed his fingers and looked calm. Old friend, I really don't want to see you go astray like this, the man in black robe said in a low voice, a man's voice. You and I have cooperated for so many years, and now at this critical juncture, you have caused such a thing again. Even if I want to help you calm down, it will be difficult. His tone was calm and gentle, but his attitude was very serious. Vindman frowned and shook his head. This is not my problem. This batch of goods was indeed robbed in my territory, but my control at the border is too weak. It is impossible to put all the responsibility on me. He paused. This batch of goods, there are 3 hidden routes on the delivery route, and after so many detours, someone can still accurately grasp the delivery route at the border. There is indeed a mole, but that's not the key. The man in black robe shook his head. The key is that someone wants to do something in your territory and can do something in your territory. What's more important is that someone allows acquiescence to such behavior. Everyone is silent, that's the point. Vindman was silent, and put his hand down on the armrest of the chair, clenching it faintly. There was a hint of regret in the black-robed man's tone. We are also old friends. Now, because of this matter, the branch is very dissatisfied with you. If you don't choose again. I am the Silver Lantern Master of the royal family, Vindman interrupted, his voice low. The royal family. The man in black robe was a little disappointed. Is this your choice? I thought you could see the situation clearly, but I didn't expect. He stood up. Forget it, just pretend I haven't been here. He turned towards the darkness beyond the yellow circle of light. Dong Sai, I haven't forgotten everything that happened, and I hope you haven't forgotten it either. Windman suddenly spoke up. I am no longer the Dong Sai I used to be. The man in black robe stood still and replied calmly. The royal family will not necessarily lose, Vindman replied decisively. But the royal family does not represent everything. The man in black robe strode into the darkness and disappeared into the shadows in an instant. There was no sound of opening the door, no sound of footsteps. It seemed like the wind melted into the darkness and disappeared without a trace. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 243. The light of the oil lamp suddenly went out, but strangely, the room gradually became brighter. The moonlight outside the window slowly came in at this time and fell on the carpet. Vindman sat quietly on the chair, with a complicated look on his face. The royal family still has us, and there are 3 major agencies. It's impossible to lose, he murmured firmly. In a forest far away from the manor, a man in black robe suddenly walked out of a shadowed corner. It was Dong Sai just now. He looked back at Terry Jones Manor. You and I have done our best, Vindman. Didn't it succeed? A black figure slowly walked out of another shadow. I knew that the old guy had his sights set on the royal alliance. He once had a family disaster and was greatly favored by the eldest prince of Kuwaitan. He swore allegiance to the royal family from now on and would never betray. How can he be so easy to instigate rebellion? Forget it if it doesn't succeed. This time, it's just for my sake, so don't pursue it any further, Dong Sai said calmly. It's up to you, but the branch was originally dissatisfied with Vindman. Now that even your only old friend has given up, his life will be difficult in the future. That's his own decision. Let's go, Dong Sai replied calmly. One after another, the two walked into the shadow of the corner where the moonlight could not shine, and disappeared silently. During the 2 days in the camp, Shia seemed to be frightened by the blue-scaled snake. She stayed in the tent and turned pale, and did not go around Guy Li to show her courtesy. Only his best friends Bai Lan and Marin came over to accompany him from time to time. They didn't even participate in the galleon hunting with everyone, saying they just felt uncomfortable. But everyone knew that he was frightened by the blue-scaled snake. He was almost bitten by a blue-scaled snake. Faced with such a deadly venomous snake, no matter who is walking a fine line between life and death, he has to take it easy. No one doubted it. In addition, Ahashia is naturally spoiled, so it is normal to have such a reaction. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Jia Long took Yalun and expanded the area around to search for various familiar medicinal herbs. He didn't know much. After all, he didn't memorize and study medicinal books. He only knew a small amount of medicinal herbs, but it was enough for use. He had walked all over the 1,000-meter radius. 2 days passed like this, and soon it was time to return. Garin finally dug out all the herbs he could find. Purple grass, thorn grass, giant rock flower. These are the 3 medicinal materials he found this time. Most of them are thousands of years old, and people here obviously treat them as ordinary weeds. In some places, there are still faintly visible herbs that have been trampled by footprints. Garin had estimated that if these herbs could be successfully made into medicinal soup, it would be enough for him to prepare 3 doses. Unfortunately, there are still many side medicines that have not been found, and the specific effects of the medicines are not yet known. He filled all the delicate wooden boxes with food with soil, divided the herbs into many small boxes and planted them as potted plants. In front of the woods in the early morning, at the entrance of the driveway. Several carriages were parked on both sides of the driveway, and guards in black and white stood in groups chatting in 2s and 3s. Beside the carriage, Vilan directed some guards to load the hunted prey into the carriage. The other ladies stood aside and smiled and chatted. Jealous stood under the shade of a big tree, watching everyone move the picnic equipment onto the carriage, and her eyes fell on the black carriage of the Terry Jones family. There, several guards were carrying a stack of exquisite wooden boxes onto the carriage. Looking at the coat of arms of the Terry Jones family, the result of the previous trial suddenly came to her mind. She hesitated for a moment, then looked at a guard in white standing beside the carriage not far away. With a flick of the finger, a little blue flashed on the fingertips. The curtain was lifted from the carriage immediately, and a female guard in white came down. The two whispered a few words to each other, and then walked towards the side together. Guy Lee hesitated for a moment, then stabilized her mind and seemed to have made a decision. He walked up to the two guards. Garin sat in the carriage and carefully placed all the wooden boxes in the corners and fixed them with ropes. He opened the curtain and saw Gillis whispering something to two of her own guards. But my heart moved slightly. Could it be those two blue scale snakes earlier? He vaguely felt that the breath of those two snakes seemed to be somewhat similar to the breath of Guy Lassie. In other words, it's the aroma. If it is really man-made, then the most likely person is jealous. He narrowed his eyes and gently touched the wooden box on the side with his hand. The speed of the blue-scaled snake is very poisonous. I am not a warrior who only uses speed and skills. I can deal with two at most. If there are more, I can only avoid them. I can only make plans after the medicinal soup is prepared and I regain some strength. According to his estimation, the average Silver Lantern Master is at least sea level or above, which is the average threat level. If he explodes with all his strength, he may still be able to reach B-level power. Just like the Silver Lantern Master who competed with Teacher Aining, the final explosion was definitely B-level. This is just an ordinary Silver Lantern Master, not to mention higher levels. Now only by improving physical fitness and restoring strength as soon as possible can we speed up the progress of learning the Silver Lantern Master. Garin recalled the details of the attack, and became more and more sure that it was controlled by humans. Among the people here, only Guy Lassie has the ability to arrange an attack. I have recorded this account. Garin lowered the curtain. Return to Terry Jones Manor. Garin found that Vindman's mood seemed to have become a little worse recently. According to the housekeeper, it seemed that Vindman's mood was affected once he received a letter. There was some doubt in my heart. The thing that could affect Vindman must be the Silver Lantern Master. But Garin didn't think much about it. At this time, no matter how hard he planned, it wouldn't be as useful as improving his own strength. In times of chaos, only one's own strength is the greatest reliance. He simply cultivated and processed all the herbs he brought back, and these steps only took him 3 days. In the process, due to his lack of skill, he broke some herb roots, which made him very distressed. Then, according to ancient prescriptions for dispensing medicine, Galen began to weigh and mix the prepared medicinal materials together. Divide into packages and pack them. Finally, it was used for medicinal baths. This time, he finally collected medicinal herbs and reluctantly mixed them together to form an ancient recipe, which was called forcing body fluid. The source is unknown, but its effect is to simply strengthen the body and replenish the body. It just needs to be simmered over medium heat for a whole day. Galen hid in his small building, set up a fire and cooked it carefully for a day, constantly adding water to prevent it from drying out. It didn't stop until the liquid turned into a thick, turbid light green color. The entire small building was filled with the slightly pungent smell of medicinal soup. All the servants and maids were driven out by him, and he did everything himself. For the sake of confidentiality. As for Vindman, this cheap father leaves early and comes home late every day. He only spends morning and evening at the manor, but there is a strange smell in the small building. The servants don't know what he is doing, let alone Vindman. After returning from the picnic, Garin spent 5 days and finally boiled 3/3 of the medicine into 3 small bottles of turquoise ointment. Galen asked his servants to carry the bathtub into his room, pour hot water into it, then close the curtains and turn on the fireplace. Towels and soap were brought in a tub. Okay, everyone, get out, Galen urged. Don't you need us to buy more hot water? An elderly maid asked in surprise. No need. I can do it myself. Well, Master Shia, be careful and don't fall asleep in the bucket, the maid warned carefully. I know, Anna. Garin nodded. Don't disturb me, I'm going to work on my ideas while I'm taking a shower. When mentioning Ahashia's poems, even the maid Anna, an old man who grew up watching Ahashia, couldn't help but feel hairy all over. Then I'll go out first, and you can take your time. She forced a smile, then called the other servants and maids, left the room one after another, and gently closed the door. Garin walked over and hung up the padlock chain with a click. The footsteps gradually left, and suddenly the only sound left in the room was the crackling sound of burning wood in the wall fire. Garin carefully walked to the desk, took out a palm-sized green glass bottle from the drawer, shook it gently, and found a green liquid as thick as honey swaying inside. He walked to the tub, unscrewed the cap of the glass bottle, and tilted the bottle slightly. Plop! The thick liquid drops into the clear hot water. Just like ink dripping into clean water, it quickly dyes the hot water into light green. I poured the entire bottle in and washed the bottle with hot water to make sure there was no residue. Garin then took off his clothes and stepped on the stool into the tub. The body is completely immersed in the hot water. Apart from the pungent smell of the medicine, it is no different from a normal hot bath. Garin took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and plunged down, his entire head completely immersed in the water. There was a splash of water, and all the sounds around him seemed to be covered with a thick layer of cloth, becoming extremely distant and quiet. Garin recalled the ancient way of making notes. He crossed his index fingers on both arms, forming a posture similar to arms folded. His whole body was soaked in the water, and his chest and abdomen began to bulge and shrink. This is the most basic breathing method of qi and blood circulation in the divine statue Gong. It is used to lay the foundation and exercise the qi and blood membrane. It's just that it didn't need the help of medicinal liquids originally, but now Galen has the help of forcing body fluids. His whole body was immersed in the water, and he came out of the water from time to time to take a breath, and then continued like this. There is no strange feeling in the body. On the contrary, the hot water soaking around him became hotter and hotter, as if someone was setting a fire below to keep heating. The entire bath water was getting hotter and hotter. The light green in the water is getting lighter and clearer. However, a faint turquoise color slowly appeared on Garin's skin. Wow! Garin emerged from the water for the 5th time, wiped the water from his face, and opened his eyes. It's getting hotter and hotter. It's indeed the body liquid that is forced. According to ancient prescriptions, the body liquid is one of the basic medicinal liquids used to create the legendary Jasper 10,000 poison body. It's a pity that the Jasper 10,000 poison body has been lost. This medicinal liquid is only available in it has the effect of strengthening the body. He sighed with regret. The Jasper 10,000 poison body is a theoretical magical skill similar to the platinum god statue of the divine idol, but its specialty is not in defense recovery, but in toxins. It can be invulnerable to all poisons and prolong life. According to the breathing method of the god's image skill, he continuously absorbs the medicinal effects of the medicinal solution, but he doesn't know how effective it will be. While running the breathing method, he had to concentrate all his attention, so he had no time to pay attention to the changes in the attribute bar. At this time, he looked at the light red attribute bar at the bottom of his field of vision again, and was slightly startled. The attribute bar has been improved silently.